This is probably one we'll talk about today. I don't have a copy of Veiled Society. You're killing me here.
Where?
You know I collect this shit, right?
Yeah, you're always posting pictures of this.
Yeah, before you hit record, I should have asked, like, what's the, is this a PG?
So two things. One of the conversations I talked about my group having sex with.
Yeah, and I told him that we were going to have to edit that.
And I actually have, by the way, I have a follow-up from that story. And second thing is, I've already hit record.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Hello there. Welcome to another
coming
episode
right
of Epic Tales. We are going through some really vintage books here.
That's the map on the back of the known world.
Wow.
And see these maps here? This is actually an expert rule book. This is from this map, Isle of Dread. Yeah. And these ones are from various modules and stuff, and they wound up, that became the Mystara setting.
Yeah, no, that.
This is going to be great for all of our Spotify listeners.
Yes. For our Spotify listeners, I have
a stack
of very horrible shape, original, basic expert, companion, and master edition books from when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And
this is nostalgia in paperback. That's what this
the
is.
modules that I had. And this is what...
And I don't have some of the... Oh my gosh, I don't have that one either.
No?
No.
You're killing him right now.
You are.
I'm holding up the Scarda's Mirror module.
I'm trying not to drool.
This is X12.
I love the classicness of the book. Okay, let's get going here. We'll get into the book. Hi there. So as you all know, I am Michael Carey, the creator of Emlual. This, as you know, is Jenny DeYoung, the illustrator, formatter, and the one that makes everything look good. And then today we have a special guest, which is Jeremy Hall from Old Men Rolling Dice, who's going to talk to us about not just D&D, but gaming and all the stuff we do. So why don't you, do you want to tell them where they can find you?
I feel like the filling between the Oreos.
You are the filling between the Oreos.
The Oreo cookies, you know?
Yeah.
Where they can find me on Instagram at Old Men Rolling Dice, which used to be a podcast, but has sort of changed and developed over time. And then on Twitch at DM_Jeremy. Those are probably the best ways to find me if you're interested.
Yeah. Oh, everyone's interested. I was interested. I am now after playing in your game on Twitch, now a subscriber and constant follower of the show. So I quite enjoy the, especially the vampire game.
We had fun with Vampire.
Vampires.
I started following the vampire one, but then I stopped because I don't have time right now.
if I'm to be frank, the vampire storyline is so convoluted and soap opera like. I don't know. I don't even know. It's certainly watchable. Like, you can come and join us while we play Vampire and hang out with us every Tuesday night. But I think if you jumped in, it would take a little bit to figure out.
But that happens. I mean, I was concerned. Well, with you jumping in on Ptolus, it's just like there's a million things going on here. Yeah. And then, and then one character decided to take offense to your character.
Yeah.
Did you start a fight?
No, but
I did. I started a
lists.
fight, but it was not intentional.
That's the way it goes. Yeah, we've kept you busy this weekend with games.
It's been a good weekend.
It's been awesome, right?
It's been a good weekend.
Some D&D at Jen's yesterday. Yeah. We had some classic riffs the night before. You were doing some character creation before that.
Like Friday, my wife and I were at Jen's to do character creation, then here for riffs, and then yesterday was actually D&D over there, 3rd edition, which was a great throwback for me. Nice to play the old edition again, and then like even today we're doing this, and I have to prep that vampire game tonight.
It becomes a job, doesn't it?
Well,
I'm curious what you made for Ptolus.
So I had no intention of playing this when I walked in, but I ended up I'm playing a wizard, a transmuter. Which I know very little about. I totally went thinking I was going to play. I had in mind a Latorian, which is this lion people in the Ptolus campaign setting, and I had run Ptolus many years ago, and am a big fan of Monty Cook games and Monty Cook as a TTRPG writer. So I was like, well, he made this lion race. This is my opportunity to play it, right? So I'm like, I'm going to be a Latorian, and then I'll be a fighter, because I love straight fighter. In 3rd edition with feats, you can just make fighters ridiculous. So anyway, but then got there and did not realize my wife was like set on being a fighter. So I bowed out, and
Yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't both.
We could have, but I'm still, and I know you were like, don't worry about the balance of the party, just play what you want to play, and I always say that as a DM too. But unfortunately, like I'm also come from an age like where like the party needs to have balance, or you don't win the day. Like I feel like when I played back in first and second edition, if the parties weren't balanced, you didn't come out the other side of the adventure.
No.
I've had challenge ratings all over the place to try and cover parties. So if it's not terribly balanced well, then I just do the challenge rating under. If they're really balanced, then I don't know what to do, because it's like, well, now we have to go back to the regular challenge rating, and or else the fight's just not.
So there were no humans in the party. So
Yeah,
I
so
decided
I'll
be the token human, and there was not sort of like a dedicated. There was spellcasters in the party, but not like a. There is a cleric. I was going to say not just a sort of. Here I'm a caster, so I went full caster, but Jennifer was nice enough to let me use Eldritch, the Book of Eldritch Might. If you're aware.
It's referenced pretty heavily.
It's part of Monty Cook's library, and I've had this hardcover book literally on my shelf since I ran it in 3rd edition. And like when I open it, still you can hear the bindings cracking.
Oh, that's such a good sound, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm getting to use that book. So I'm like, isn't that amazing? Because I mean, I don't know if you check out my Instagram, I have a massive library of D&D books over the years, and I say massive not to toot my own horn, but that's how my wife describes it. And you know, it has its own room in the house that it's dedicated to, and now I get to actually use some of the older.
You get a room?
Yeah, that's
my stuff's in a tote.
Well, it's a room, but it's literally in the basement beside the furnace. Like,
my stuff is in a tote, hidden away. The few things I can get are on this shelf here.
I have a dream of turning our garage into a library.
Oh.
Then we will finally have space for all of our game books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can honestly say I don't think I've read every book that I have, because I'm a bit of a completionist. Like when my kids were little, my one son loved the Power Rangers. I couldn't just buy him the Red Ranger for Christmas. No, I would have to buy him all the Power Rangers. The whole thing. Yeah. That's right. We need all of them, and I think that comes from again being a kid and getting like the Jawa Star Wars action figure and not having Luke and Han and Leia, and being like, I feel like I've been done wrong, Mom.
It's like a kid and one uncle gives you like a part of Voltron. It's like, what am I doing with this?
So with D&D books, it's the same. Like looking at Jennifer's like B8 Journey to the Rock and Scarta's mirror over here. I don't have either of these modules in hard copy. I'm very jealous.
This is quite a library you brought in.
Well, these are
books.
ones I've run this one so many times. Lost City is a classic.
I just ran the updated Lost City, the 5e version.
Oh.
I just ran that with my kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It went well.
It's a pyramid, and then as you go deeper, there's a pyramid in reverse underneath, and it's an enormous dungeon.
It is a little railroady in that you get trapped inside the pyramid right off the bat.
I think a lot of these older settings adventures were all real. They didn't think anyone wanted a sandbox.
No.
What I love looking at this is just first. I mean, the maps are so basic,
I'm gonna hold
and
this up.
I just love it.
The old blue is gorgeous.
Yeah, back in the day, for our Spotify listeners, we are going very visual here. I just held up the inside cover of the Lost City module, and it's got several tiers of the pyramid in it. And it's the old style map grid where it's in blue. Everything's marked out. You got your rooms numbered.
Everything is square.
Yes, everything is square. All the rooms are square.
Every room is square.
and each square equals 10 feet.
Was it 10 feet in the old system?
It's 10 feet in the old system. So, your very small rooms were only 10 feet.
That drives me bonkers in the new setting when I was playing a game in the Stormlord's Fury or whatever, the Giant Adventure 5e. And I'm like, I'll make a dwarf. And it's like, okay, every square is 10 feet. I'm like, so I move 2.5 squares. How do you mark off half a square,
Well, you didn't
right?
have minis back then, and you didn't have battle maps.
Yeah.
Everything was theater of the mind. So, like the DM would have the map in front of them, and if you were lucky, your party had a map maker who was good at it. And who would like sit there with your grid of paper.
My group actually did use miniatures even back in the day. We would get chart paper from school, like from a school supply store. I still use that chart paper to this day
For drawing out your maps.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would have our like little metal miniatures out. There was a Lord of the Rings metal miniature collection you could get, and it basically had dwarves, halflings, and elves. Like it was perfect. So we had we had a couple of those between friends, and we would use the miniatures. But like you said, how do I move 2.5 squares?
Yeah,
we weren't using it that way. It wasn't that. It was just like Jim is in this room,
just
so
for reference.
Yeah, just for reference. As we drew it out, and sometimes we even use dominoes for the walls.
Oh, hey, that's clever.
Okay.
Back before all the fancy 3D dungeon stuff that you can.
We used to go to a little hobby shop in the 90s on Charing Cross, and we bought all these lead figures, and we would just paint them. We didn't know what it was for. We didn't play D&D, right? At that point, we were too young, but it's like and then when the time we discovered role-playing games, it was like, oh, we could use those miniatures, and then trying to find where my mother had put them, because they all ended up in a box somewhere, and find them 30 years later. I still pull them out now, the unpainted ones for like petrified creatures and stuff. But I remember watching older like movies where they reference D&D, and they've got the metal figures. And
they're made like with lead.
Yeah.
Yep.
which is,
When I dug these up, I found my old lead BattleTech mechs too.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, I pick up the box and it weighs 10 pounds.
You gotta love too how so many of the artwork on these pictures, on these books, were reused.
Yes.
Like I'm looking at this one over here for the
companion.
The companion.
Yeah, well,
I'm like, that was the cover of a novel I read once.
But that was Larry Elmore. They spent the money on it. They're going to use it as much as they can.
So they were like, so at TSR during this time. Here, I'll give you a history lesson.
Yeah,
there were 4 artists they hired, and they get referred to sometimes as the 4 Horsemen. And they were Larry Elmore, Jeff Easley, Clyde Caldwell, and I always forget the 4th, Parkinson. I forget his first name, though. Anyways, there you go. So they're the 4. Their art became very iconic and very, like you said, it gets reused. So when you're looking at D&D books, though, that artwork becomes almost iconic.
Yeah.
And I don't know that modern D&D has that same kind of iconic feel.
No, they don't have.
It doesn't.
They don't have specific illustrators anymore. They have a whole bunch of people that contribute. And
that being said, maybe 20 years from now, there's going to be an old man that played 5th edition as his first edition, or woman, and they're going to tell me, oh, it's iconic.
And they'll have one day a week where they post pictures of a particular character, like a Warduke style character.
Yes.
How do you not love the Warduke?
I got addicted to Warduke when I was a kid. That character. I forget the module he's in. I think something of the Heartstone. Do you know the module?
No, I don't.
And he makes an appearance himself in the Paladin Strongheart, I think. And anyways, I got sort of hooked on Warduke, and now I'm a big Warduke fan. Everything Warduke. I have a small Warduke collection.
Yeah. Small collection of books too, since I see you post them like this. There's a beauty too of looking at these books and just you can see their age.
Oh yeah. These are in terrible shape.
I mean, I talk about nostalgia overload when I was setting up our Risk game. This is just like fantastic.
Well, these were used a lot. They were used a lot, and our birds chewed them.
They were well loved, that's for sure.
So when I buy collections, and I have bought a couple.
Yeah.
This is pretty common shape, and I actually love this. I don't mind. Like sometimes you'll get a book like this, and inside there'll be like you can see the DM's old notes.
Yeah.
I love books like that. Like that does not devalue it for me at all. Because I just love the fact, or like finding. I know you had the basic, the red box book there. I have a copy. Well, I don't have it anymore. I actually just sent it away to a follower.
You did a giveaway for that.
And there was an actual. Someone had drawn their first dungeon There was a piece of graph paper inside that you could
Inside of it?
photocopy.
Yeah.
And someone had drawn their first dungeon in there with crayon.
Oh.
And I was just like, this
Yeah.
is like amazing. Because you're getting a piece of how we all played the game back
Well,
then.
back
Yeah.
then, like I would actually photocopy the graph paper in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And 25 cents a copy at the library.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I did my dungeons.
I think there's hex graph paper in the Expert, isn't there?
There is.
It just shows that the books were loved, they were used, that
don't even
you know,
know.
they weren't, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to buy this and put it on a shelf so I can make money on it later. That's not what we were doing.
Here is Threshold. I remember.
There it is. There's the hex paper.
But that's.
Look at the maps.
Yeah.
We could do maps like this for Emerald.
We could.
Save a lot of money.
We absolutely could.
You know, I think if we released a book with maps like that, it might get a lot
I
of the
think
older people.
The older people might be into it, but the younger people are going to look at it and say,
Go,
"What
this
the hell
is
is this?"
garbage.
I don't know. You know what? I found a lot of people a lot of people that I play with now are not of my age, and when they get an opportunity to look through my books, they love them. Mm-hmm. Like
Well-
they're like home runs. So I don't know. You might find that, you know, that old school feel is just what someone's looking for.
So we're going to talk a bit here today. We all have played a lot of games for a lot of years.
Yes.
And we don't need to get into specifics of it, of the years that is. But we're going to get into specifics of the game. And I was thinking the other night, like, okay, we talk primarily D&D on here.
Yeah.
Mainly because we have made a D&D campaign setting. But let's just talk about all the games we've run. And I came up with some fun kind of things to throw at you guys. I kind of want your feedback on these.
Okay.
Because this happens to me. You play a game like, say, D&D, and you run a campaign, and you're like, okay, I'm going to run another campaign. I'm going to run another campaign. Do you ever get kind of tired of a game and need to move on to another, like a totally different setting, totally different game? Has that ever happened to you? Or do you find you balance it well?
Yeah, as a player, no. As a DM, yes, because I've been running just D&D for the past while, like 4 years now, and I'm like, I have settings right now that I want to run, and I don't really have time because I'm running a lot of D&D.
Yeah.
So I'm like, one of the campaigns is going to have to switch. So.
But then the players are like, oh no, we like this, we want to play this. So you're like, but it gets to a point where now it's not fun for you, and then it shows in the game, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there is a bit of burnout sometimes if you are just doing the one thing over and over. You don't have a lot of time. You're not giving yourself a break from it. It's like anything else. If you're doing it nonstop, you kind of get tunnel vision, and you don't really get as creative anymore. So I think it's a good idea to switch things up every now and then. With D&D, I've got multiple settings, so it just seems like there's a different feel for it. And I'm doing a 3.5 campaign and 5e campaigns. But I'm like, I kind of got an itch to play a different type of game now.
Yeah.
So I've got Candela Obscura sitting on my bookshelf that I've never cracked open. I've got we've got Call of Cthulhu, we've got World of Darkness. All my stuff is going to be like dark. But I also backed Fallen London this year on Kickstarter, and it's going to ship in a little bit.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I'm so excited. I'm like, I want to run that too.
That's the very reason I backed Mothership, was I need something drastically not fantasy.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I'm like, I'm going to back that. And then someone gave me the Alien book, and I'm like, oh, these are going to be way too similar. Yeah. What about you, Jeremy?
I think Alien and Mothership have the same feel, but they're very different games.
Yeah, they both use a stress factor, but in such different ways.
Yeah.
Now, you play a lot of games during the week.
Yeah.
Like, you've got Castles and Crusades and
Yeah.
D&D and Vampire, but do you ever get a burnout?
I am burnt out on D&D right now.
Yeah.
Like, I know that Castles and Crusades kind of is the same itch as D&D, but I'm just burnt out on the 5e system, and I'm just kind of tired of it. But I would say, like, growing up and playing through the years, I think I go through a rotation of systems for sure, where you put down the D&D, you put down the fantasy for a little while and pick up a sci-fi game or a horror game, and play them for a little while.
Well, I think like the offside of that as a player, because when we were playing at your table every once in a while, it's like, okay, well, we're switching out. We're going to play Marvel now. And I mean, oh, but this is my best. I love this game. This is my favorite campaign. And then like two weeks into Marvel, I'm like, no, this is the best game ever. This is my favorite game. Then we switch out. Oh no, but I really
the DM burnout. It can affect the game too, though.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not going to say that I have burnt out before on a game, on a setting, on a campaign. I think I've totally burnt out on it before, where I just come up with no more ideas for that, and that I think that's certainly a good time to take a stop. I also think that like if you're like me and have a love for many role playing games, like sometimes all it takes is a Saturday afternoon of me sitting down and reading, I don't know, let's say a Call of Cthulhu book, and I'm like, I really want to run this Call of Cthulhu book. I really want to run this Call of Cthulhu game, and then you're stuck with the problem of I only have so many nights in a week that I can game, or in a month, let's say, and it doesn't fit. So my only choice then is to rotate out of a game and into this.
Yeah.
And, so many times the intention is, well, we'll come back to this. And then I think we can all agree that we don't always get back.
We either don't get back, or we get back years later and no one remembers anything.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's sort of just the natural flow of gaming, is that you come and go out of. If you're fortunate enough to build your campaign in such a way where there's like, it's sort of like episodic, where there's nothing necessarily tying the last adventure to the next. It's a new adventure, and you can wrap and put a nice little button on it. That's certainly nice. But if you start telling this epic story of, it turns in like the vampire game has turned into a bit of a soap opera, where if people are remembering stuff from very early sessions and trying to is that referencing that, or even D&D that happens with, right, where maybe the first couple adventures something was referenced, and now you're now in session 20 whatever, and you're like, oh, remember back when. And sometimes the DM's like, that's exactly what I wanted. And other times the DM's like, I don't even know who you're talking about.
But that's it
great.
now.
Exactly. So I think if you're fortunate enough to run it episodic, you have the ability to kind of bail and put a button on it. Because the other thing, you risk alienating players that are like, well, I like my character Super Gem, and I can't get. You're not going to let me play Super Gem now, and I'm not really as interested in this next coming game. So, and then it's always the option to rotate out the player too. Like, they don't have to play in every game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've got this issue. I'm starting to feel it now, and I'm not happy with it, because I'm running into coming halfway through my third D&D campaign in a row, and I almost feel obligated to keep running D&D because we've made Emlerol.
Yeah.
And the players have all played these 3 campaigns in Emlerol, so like we want to keep going. And then, like you say, you read a book, and you're like, oh, like. I've been reading a lot of the Lovecraft lately, and I'm like, oh, I want to run a Call of Cthulhu.
Let me be a devil's advocate here for you. How many years did it take you to develop Emerald before it was finally in?
Before we went to print, I myself was probably. Well, you were what, 2 years, 3 years on the art?
I was 3 years on the art,
and
I remember just before the pandemic, we had gone to your parents' cottage.
Yeah.
And then we sat down to play what became Heart of the Mountain.
Eventually became. Yeah. So we're all probably 5-6 years in the making.
Yeah. And I assume you played many D&D campaigns prior to.
We did Forgotten Realms.
So here's my point. You had lots of time to sort of cook those creative juices for what would eventually be your campaign setting, Emerald.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to now not leave it, you're not getting any other influence from elsewhere, right?
Right.
So if you take a break from it, I think that gives you a chance to build up those creative ideas again by experiencing other maybe settings or systems, and go, oh, I would love, I'm going to take that for my Emerald game. I'm going to take that for my next D&D campaign. Like, I think if you don't, this is also the problem with forever DMs. Mm-hmm. If they don't get an opportunity to experience other people's games, then they don't get a chance to steal.
Yeah,
like, there's nothing better than to sit down with a really good DM and have them run a game, and then go, I liked how that happened. in that game, I'm going to steal that for mine, and then it makes your own game better. But
also,
if you're only playing yours, you don't get an opportunity to do that.
Well, this is the thing, is like, it also gives you a feeling to sit on the opposite side of the screen and know what it feels like when certain things happen. So as a player, you're like, well, I really enjoyed like this kind of stuff, but I didn't really, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Didn't really like when this happened. So, you know, I have more of this, like, part A than part B. I'd like maybe let's just exclude part
and
B.
To that point, I think you can learn just as much from a crappy DM or a crappy game master. I shouldn't say crappy. Let's call them an inexperienced game master who's making common mistakes we all make, but then you're witnessing them as a player maybe, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember why that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I think stepping away is okay.
Yeah. I mean, I say I'm on my third campaign. I so badly wanted to run a Call of Cthulhu. This entire campaign is Lovecraft-based monsters and stuff. And even my group's starting to go like, which game are we playing? So I will run this through because it's episodic enough, but I feel I do owe it to them that we will run this campaign through till it's finished and give it the ending it deserves out of the fear that we won't come back to it. But a big part of me now is, I don't know why, for some reason, I'm like, I kind of want to run a vampire game. It might also be why I thought about running the mini episodes of Rifts that we're doing, the 4-part episode of Rifts. It's just a different, like a non-fantasy setting, just even for a little bit.
Do you know what I will be playing this summer?
What are you playing this summer?
Pokemon 5e.
That can't be real.
It is a real thing. It's also not legal, but Miley wants to learn how to DM. She found this Pokemon setting for 5e online, downloaded the books, was really excited to run it, is just going to run it for Paul and I. And I know nothing about Pokemon. I
couldn't tell you anything.
4 of the names and that's it. I'm not going to know anything. We're going to go into this 5e thing and play Pokemon as a D&D game. And I'm actually very excited about that. Like, it's so different than what we normally run. Yeah. And I can't wait to see what happens. And it's very different than everything we're running.
They're doing almost everything 5e. Well, we will get to a conversation about 5e in this podcast. I think we all have varying degrees of opinion. Do you want me to fight? We have varying degrees of opinion on it, but I think for the most part, we can agree on some of the generals there. But yeah, there was a lot of products out there that are 5e based. Like there's a Studio Ghibli 5e game that's out now.
I think there's a Star Wars.
Is there a Star Wars now too? Like there's just so much. It's like, oh, those would be neat. Those would be fun. Yeah. And I wonder how would that work, classes and all that. Yeah. But it's.
I won't get too deep into this, but I'll just say I wish those games would maybe not use 5e.
There's a lot of other systems.
I wish those games would be brave enough to try other systems. I sometimes think that 5e becomes a crutch for especially the new generation of players. Yep. They learn 5e, they're comfortable with 5e, so they then import everything to 5e. And I think when I was a kid, that was happening with like AD&D as well. Yeah. People were trying other things but using AD&D rules for them. But the truth of it is, like, like we talked about Alien, if you run an Alien game and you don't have those stress dice, it takes something away from the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's nice to find a system that fits the game you're playing. Exactly. And 5e is not necessarily a catch-all.
It's not, but you're exactly that. It's become almost this universal thing that people grab onto because it's the main, I won't say the main one, but it's like the most seen one out there.
Think about is positive about the fallout of the OGL thing from Wizards of the Coast a little while ago is that a lot of people are now spreading out and trying other systems, and a lot of game publishers out there are publishing their version of the OGL for their system so that people can take that and make their own games from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I do think that's a big help because people need to do that. I agree with you on that about the 5e for sure. And some people try a system. Not all systems are good. Not all systems are perfect. Sometimes, a system is overdone with too many roles, sometimes not enough roles, but you got to try them. You got to dip your toe in it and see how it feels.
And everybody's different. Everybody's going to have preferences.
But also it has to, like Jeremy was saying, it has to match the setting you're playing in. You couldn't play a 5e Alien game.
You could, but it wouldn't have the same feel.
No. Right? It would become almost like a hack and slash against aliens, which is the opposite of the feeling that game is giving. Yeah. it'd be like trying to play World of Darkness with 5e rules.
Yeah.
Now it's become a fighting game where it's supposed to be a drama game. And
Well, I found that when Star Wars went from 3rd edition to 4th edition, is that it went from having these very nuanced characters who had like a lot of skills based for role-playing, for investigating, for diplomacy, for like...
Yeah, and then the Sega edition came out.
Yeah, I had essentially a gambler, noble gambler. And then we transferred her to 4th edition, and suddenly, like, all the skills that she had no longer applied. She became a gunslinger.
Even the talents made you combat-based.
Yeah.
Now, their new system that they put out, Edge of the Empire and that sort of is now more heavily on the role-playing. And one fault I'll say is went almost too heavily into the crafting.
Okay.
Like, there's so much about it with crafting, and it's like, okay, at first I thought, oh, it's cool, I'm going to make a guy who builds his own armor, and then going through it's like, no, this is, like, every single one of us is pretty much being drawn to just crafting our own stuff so that we can walk around and destroy everything, and I was like, oh, there's a fault there, right? We've overcrafted to the point that the DM is like, I can't stop you guys now. So I turned my guy into almost a improv jokester crafter, like, making stuff, but almost just purposely doing it wrong just to see what would happen with the equipment. But that they got away from that. Now, another system, we'll take it. It's all what kind of game you want to play. Do you want to play a combat game? Do you want to play a role-playing game? And find the system that works on that one. Which will lead me into actually a question I had here. Jeremy, I got a good one for you here. What is your favorite system to run? Regardless of campaign, regardless of setting, what's your favorite sort of dice system that you like to use?
That's tricky.
Yeah.
That's tricky. Well, I'm somewhat biased right now because I'm running World of Darkness. I do like... I won't say specifically the World of Darkness system, but I like the dice pool system where you're building dice pools and then rolling a whole bunch of dice. That being said, I enjoy games that like reduce the number of times I have to roll the dice.
Yeah.
Like nothing I hate more than a game where I roll the dice and it really means nothing. Like if it comes up as a success, whatever is deemed a success, I get information A, and if it comes up a failure, the DM ends up giving me information A anyways because they want me to have information A, and my point to that is then don't have me roll the dice. Like,
yes.
So any system that sort of is heavy, I would rather have fewer dice rolls, but those dice rolls mean a lot more.
Yep.
Just let your players succeed. So I find that the World of Darkness, the dice pool system lets me do that. That I don't need to worry about as much rolling, and then when the roll does happen, then this is a roll that actually means something. So as far as my favorite system goes, I don't know. That's I really like the dice pool, and I mean, I've been playing a lot of Castles and Crusades as well, so I'm kind of liking that system.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's that different than D&D. It's still a D20 system, right? So, yeah. And that doesn't really answer your question.
Well, it doesn't. What you were saying there too about when the rolls don't matter, like that comes down to the DM. And I've seen you do this, where it's like you look and go, okay, you have a high enough dice pool. You're not gonna need to roll.
There's no need to roll that. Yeah.
Right. And if the DM wants the group to have a particular piece of information, you find a way for them to get it. Don't put it on it, because as soon as you bank it on, if they succeed, they get this information. Guaranteed, they're going to fail.
Yeah.
Right. Like if it's crucial, you find a way for them to get it that's not banked on a dice roll. I remember.
I do a backup plan.
Backup plan. Maybe they can find it this way. They can find it that way, and then they don't feel like you're spoon feeding because like, oh, we failed that. And then they get information from someone else. They don't realize that's the information they missed.
I was with a player that I had not... they had played in my game, but I hadn't been in their game before. And I joined them for a short time. And in the first session, it was D&D 5e. And I really botched I think it was a history check. Like, clearly... I think it was like a 7 was my total roll. So even at the lowest DC in the game, being maybe a 10, right?
Yeah.
I should not have gotten any information, in my opinion.
Yeah.
and they almost lore dumped on me. And I was like, what was the point of that roll I just made? Like, what would I have gotten if I had succeeded? And I think what it came down to was they were just, that was an opportunity to give out some lore, which is great. All game masters, lore is important for immersion and everything. But they just shouldn't have asked for the roll. They should have just...
Well, sometimes you ask for it on instinct, like almost as a, like muscle memory. Like,
perception checks
whatever
are like
check. And I'm like, oh, crap.
And that's, I think, to a new DM's thing is you sit there and you go, I haven't had them roll anything from a while. They must be bored because they're not rolling dice.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
I find the game is better was when the DM doesn't do anything. You're just sitting there doing this and watching them interact.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think when your players just sort of take the ball and run with it, and you can just sit back and watch it, I like that. But I think, like, to your point, if they're not rolling dice, make sure they understand why. Like, you know what, Jim, your rogue has a +10 perception check. I don't even need you to check for this.
Yeah.
You notice the following. Bop, 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 bop. Because then they know, okay, my investment in perception is working.
Yes.
Like, I spent points or however the system works.
Yeah.
I dedicated specialty into perception, and the game master's acknowledging that, and I don't even have to roll. I'm so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as long as they understand that there's no rolls happening because you guys are playing within your wheelhouse, and then all of a sudden, sorry, the knight is going to try to sneak across the corridor.
Oh, yeah.
Now I need a stealth check.
Yeah.
But, like, even the rogue sneaking across the corridor, why ask for the check? I understand that like, are you just fishing for the one? Are you just fishing for the opportunity to go, you screwed up?
Yeah.
And there is comedy that comes with that. But there's also something very empowering at just saying to your rogue, like, oh, you sneak across the shadow, no one knows you're there. You have what, a +15 in your stealth, don't you? Oh yeah, we don't even need to make the check. Like, you're just that good.
And the reverse of that is you ask them for the roll, they get that one, and now you've actually taken away their power. Oh, you put all this in there, and what does everyone at the table do? Go, oh, you're the worst rogue ever. Yeah. I have a +15 to hide. Like,
that inevitably happens. There's some humor in that. But
it can take from them too.
Yeah.
And it's funny you keep talking about perception. I will say one thing I do quite like in 5e is the passive perception, because there's nothing worse than saying to your players, roll perception, and they roll and you go, okay, and you keep going and they're like, wait, no, obviously there's something.
Or they roll under their passive and they ask you, can I just use my passive? And it's like, well, if you really, the DM should be saying, like, if you're just using your I already checked, your passive was not high enough, so no, you can't just use your passive.
And that's where I like to, I'll have, like, if say there's someone sneaking on the group, I'll roll their stealth and go, okay, oh no, I've got everyone's passives written down, so I don't have to say, oh, you failed at a check, because now they're on high alert.
Yeah.
Instead,
and they're going to walk back and
forth. Oh, you just turn them and go, you guys are all sitting there, but you notice this person.
Yeah.
But if you're playing a horror game, then you can
yes, when you want
to push those rules when they're not necessarily.
Do the random. I need perception from all of you.
Yeah.
Okay, everything's fine.
Horror game, you just roll dice behind your screen, look, and keep going.
You know what though? Like these books in front of us. I'm looking at B5 Horror on the Hill here in Journey to the Rock. There was no perception checks in these games.
No.
So it was up to the player to tell you, I'm looking behind the curtain.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to check the floor. I'm checking the ceiling. Well, and there's something very I like that. That puts more onus on the player. And at some point, players decided, well, I'm not good at noticing things, or I'm not good at thinking these up, but my character might be. So why can't my character have a role to represent that? And I'm not saying that's sort of wrong game mechanics, but I don't know. I would much prefer to just go, here's how the room looks, and then the characters go, okay, I'm going to check the following.
Yeah.
Don't worry about a roll. If they look under the box, they're going to see the poison trap.
I don't know if you ever played with anybody similar to the people I played with on these particular modules. So they would literally say, "Are there floorboards?" I peel up the floorboards. Is there wallpaper? I pull it down. Is there window? I like and every item you just said.
Now is
that would have been in the 80s? That would have been in the 80s?
In the 80s. These were like kids. So.
I learned a term for that. We called it gygaxing a room.
Yes.
So when you got to tournament play at conventions and things, there was you would Gygax a room. You would turn over the beds. You would cut the stuffing. You would turn chairs over. You would look behind any pictures or there's just a whole checklist.
Actually, at your table, there was one character playing a crusader that would literally cut open our opponents to see if there's anything in their stomach.
Just to see if they had gold hidden inside them. I'm like, what kind of psychopaths do you think I'm having you fight? And then I look back at my games and go, oh no, I deserve that, because I would then turn around and do that.
I mean, DMs and GMs are their own worst enemy in that, you hide gold inside a body once, and now they're going to check everybody.
Every single time.
Mm-hmm.
I've found two things that I've done to kind of counter my previous act. So, everyone sneaks through and I'm searching for a trap. And I did this actually to the guys at Ragnarok this year. Yeah. They kept searching for traps. Yeah. So at one point the guy's like, there's no traps. I didn't put a single trap in here. Okay, the guy makes a roll for a search for trap. I'm like, ooh, I need you to give me a dexterity saving throw. And they all go, why? They're like, oh no. He rolls, he gets like a 20. I go, okay, you hear a creaking in the rock as you step, it shifts. You jump forward, certain that there's something about to blow up behind you, but it was just a loose rock. And they just look at me like, did you really just do that to us? It's like, yeah, you're safe. You're confident there are no traps here, and now your overheightedness of it is making it worse for you.
I had a player character that did something like that, where they increased their perception so high. Like, I think with some feats you can get it to ridiculous.
Oh, yes. So then the Genku is passive 20.
Then I just decided if that's...
I wonder who that might be.
If that's how we're going to play, I'm going to have you notice literally everything. And I will just, put you on wild goose chases about a cricket that moved in to the right.
Yeah, that's what happens with my
players will then take that little detail, that not even a red herring, just a random detail you put in, and they fixate on it, and they go, this has to be important because the DM talked about it. It's like, no, you have such a high passive perception, or such a high perception.
This is what you notice. This is how my Ptolis players wound up sailing to an island that doesn't exist. It was an island that was just mentioned in passing, and they decided,
but they
need to go there.
We are going to go there. This will solve everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's a beautiful part. I think that's a beautiful part of the game sometimes. Sure. But it also, I mean, traps are one of those things that if you start using traps and the players become I get that a rogue should be searching every door for a trap and that, but oh my gosh, can that slow down a game if you're playing a 30-room dungeon, let's say, and they're searching every door, they're searching every corridor. So I think that's when maybe the DM, there comes a time where gameplay has to be optimized over the same. Yeah. So make an agreement where can we just agree that you were checking every door, and I'll tell you if something
I'll tell you if you find something
suspicious comes up. And of course you can't be totally well, I'll tell you if you see something, and then then be a total jerk and throw a trap at them. But no, absolutely.
And we train our players to react and to do things just like you say. You do it once, they look for it, then they forget about it, and then you do it again.
I kind of have. I've been accused of traumatizing my players because it's just there's always something awful, and then it gets amped up by.
You've accused me of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You are worse than me.
You've accused me of that. You give me a backstory, I'm running it. I'm taking it. I mean, I love a backstory. A paragraph, a 3-page backstory, it doesn't matter. I love a backstory. That means you've invested in your character. And I'm going to take it, and I'm going to somehow incorporate it into the story. Maybe just in a way that gives you oh, hey, that's from my story. And it makes you kind of feel attached. And sometimes if you've put an awful person in your backstory, that person's going to show up and try to ruin your life.
Yeah.
And if you put someone that you're in love with, and they're, I'm going to just run the story the way you've written it for me. I don't like to take someone's backstory and turn it on its head.
There's a wall. If somebody's giving you a backstory, as a DM, I love backstories because it gives me stuff to build the campaign on. But you can't just have the character where they come in, they've given you 3 pages of backstory, and this is my character, this is their family, this is what they've been doing up to this point. And you're like, okay, and there's a wall right here, and none of that's
and they're not involved in it.
Yeah,
and that happens with a lot of pre-made adventures.
Yes,
and modules like that. Okay, so reverse of
we could do a whole episode on backstories, by the way.
Man,
I have lots
could.
to say, but I'm not going to say it.
Reverse of the last question.
Okay.
And you will not hurt anyone's feelings here at the table.
Okay.
A system you just did not like. Regardless of how much you might have loved the setting or the game idea, a system that you just did not or do not like? Maybe not your least, maybe you don't hate it, but you just didn't like it. And I know one of the big ones that comes out when this comes up a lot is the Palladium system. Because it is got a lot of heavy dice rolls in it.
It's crunchy.
It's hard for me to dislike it only because that was my first game. So there's like a first love there, right?
Yeah.
But I like even sitting the other night, sitting there going like, wow, like
okay,
we can throw a lot of rules here.
Not to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
But when we were playing Rifts the other day,
yes,
I love the setting, and you've done a great job of involving the lore of Rifts and everything. But during combat, I was like, this is clunky.
It is so clunky.
And like I was looking, I know Savage Worlds does a version of Rifts, and I was wondering to myself, could we get all the cool lore and sort of world building that happens in Rifts, but with something that moves just a little more straightforward than what we're doing? Not that I'm not enjoying the game. I am enjoying the game, but I wouldn't actually pick on Palladium. I wouldn't pick on Palladium. I don't think Palladium would be the system that I don't.
They did something. They were trying to give a lot of ways that you could have lots of rolls and stuff that didn't involve. But once you got to combat, it did slow down. Like we ran a good hour's worth of combat. That was one round.
Yeah.
And that's why I've kind of taken a cue from what you do with World of Darkness. Is okay, guys. We're like 1 or 2 rounds, 3 rounds. This fight should be over. Because I've played in. I remember as a kid playing a full 4.5 hour game, and it was nothing but one fight.
Yeah. Well, we've played games before too, where if it's been a big battle, there's 2 or 3 sessions where it's just that battle.
So, I mean, that's not a system I dislike. I quite like it, but that's just, as you said, a nostalgia.
Joe, and you don't like?
So, I will go to, and we played it a lot, and I don't know if I learned to love it or just accept it, was the TSR Marvel game with the universal chart. Yeah, I know.
I'm insulted.
Not the worst system. I thought that might be the system. I was like, oh, that's probably the worst system I've ever played. And then, again, Marvel comes up with the stone. Do you remember this one? The stone system? We played it very briefly, maybe a couple of games, where you had a pile of stones and you were spending them to do your abilities. And I'm like, they're trying something new, but it does not work. One character quickly went, oh, if I just do this at character creation, I have like double the stones than anyone else, and I get them back constantly.
It was too easy to break the system on that one. It was a neat idea, but it was clunky, and there was always going to be 1 or 2 players that would.
Now, Margaret Weiss did a beautiful system and setting for Marvel that they then immediately canceled.
I never saw that.
It was, we picked it up at, I think it was Bayshore Hobby when they were closing in Dundas.
Really?
They were doing like their garage Westdale. They were doing their garage sale, and Matt and I went in and we picked it up, and we're just gonna buy it. And he's reading it, and he came back to me and goes, this is such a great system. Even character creation wasn't point based or dice. It was, you sat down with the game master and you went, so tell me what you want to do with your character. Okay, so we're gonna just build it. You're gonna have this, this, and this. That's what you're gonna do. Like, it was just so well done. It was creative. It was collaborative story building, collaborative character building. And you could choose on a dice roll to force a success, but it just, what you would do is take those dice that failed and you put them in the DM's sort of doom pool that he could use later in the story.
That's similar to the Hope and Fear and
yeah, and I thought this is so great. And they had the main book. There was a second book that had come out. They had like 3 more that were being made, and then the licensing got pulled by Marvel. I think it was when Disney kind of got involved and they pulled the licensing, and all of it got lost. And I was like, it's a shame because it was such a beautiful system to run. And I love the idea that it was heavily based on, for a superhero game, heavily based on storytelling.
Well, I mean, it's essentially going to be comic books, right? You are making your own collaborative comic book here. It's going to be storytelling.
I can't help but notice you haven't given a system that you didn't like.
I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, there's pluses and negatives in just about everything. There's like stuff I like in systems and stuff I hate in systems. And I was thinking about the old D&D. It was the THACO system and having separate hit charts for every character class, and I hate that. We were talking when you were doing character creation. I don't like this spell system in 3.5. I prefer the 5th edition where you have slots to spend. You've memorized spells, so rather than memorize Fireball 5 times, you can memorize it once, but you can cast it 5 times at the expense of other spells.
Yeah, I think that that Vancian magic that came out of first and second, it is a little, it's very restrictive.
Yeah.
Very restrictive.
But these were early days of building, right?
Yeah, I like
Absolutely.
Call of Cthulhu, but it's like I feel like it can be fixed better. Character advancement is hard.
You have to fail to succeed.
Pretty much.
I actually like that feature, though. But Call of Cthulhu, I get what you're saying, because it has a Rift-style roll to
badly,
it.
you are never going to succeed. You are never going to advance. You are never going to get anywhere.
It's almost easier to fail in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And for a game where characters aren't really going to last that long.
Yeah.
They either die or go insane.
I think
you're still leveling, so then give them something to level to.
But I think it's really important in Call of Cthulhu that, and not everybody likes this, but like Dungeons and Dragons is very much a power fantasy.
Yeah.
I level up to get more powerful.
Yes.
Exactly.
Call of Cthulhu,
it's the opposite.
when you begin your character is probably at their strongest.
Yeah.
And then it is just how long can you grip by nail to hold on to your life as you're slowly chipped away at. And leveling up in Call of Cthulhu is not really...
Then there's no point in leveling.
Well, it's not really leveling. You're just increasing skills.
But you're never going to increase your skills because
Except
it's
for the
dependent
one.
upon...
Well, you should, because the more you fail at a skill, the more the
Yeah.
chance it should go up. But anyway, I still see what you do.
Yeah.
I think that that's an important distinction, though, in Call of Cthulhu, is that like it's not a power fantasy, whereas in other role playing games, the more games your character participates in, the more powerful they're going to become.
You build them.
In Call of Cthulhu, it's like your eyes will be open to more things, your character will be more knowledgeable, but you will be broken.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love the fact that the higher your mythos skill gets, the lower your sanity goes. I mean, I
wasn't
love
even getting that leveled up. It was just like it would be time to roll to see if you level, and I don't think like after 3 levels, and then my character died. But after 3 levels,
you looked at the painting. It wasn't my fault. Maybe don't look at the painting. Like we're talking about checking and ripping off the floorboards in the bed. Don't stare at the painting in the middle of the room.
Yeah, don't look at it too long. Don't look at it too long.
Both of you ended up in there.
I know that was the end of the party too.
That was 2 out of 3 people into the painting right away. And I was like, I don't know what to do there.
I don't like Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yeah.
I even streamed for Goodman Games for a while, so
Did
maybe
you?
I shouldn't say it. Yeah. I don't like Dungeon Crawl Classics because if you haven't played before, there is a lot of random tables in Dungeon Crawl Classics. And when you cast spells, there's always a chance for misfire. And I like that about the game. I like that magic comes at a cost and there's always a chance to misfire, but there's also like catastrophic outcomes that can come from casting a spell. So I will play one-shots of Dungeon Crawl Classics. And Mutant Crawl Classics I love, but I will only one-shot it because I feel like a campaign... I've literally started a DCC, like a Dungeon Crawl Classics game, and we're anticipating to play the whole night, and a half an hour in, someone rolls a critical failure on a spell, and the dice just... The dice decide they're telling their own story, and the entire party's dead.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration. The entire party was dead, and we were only maybe an hour an hour in.
Heard about stuff like that too with Wild Magic table for D&D, where somebody's got a Wild Magic sorcerer. They cast a really simple spell at the beginning of the campaign, and guess what? We've got to maximize Fireball at Ground Zero, where the party
Superfuel
is,
flame it.
and that's that.
So some games are almost designed to be one-shots better than campaign style.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think Alien is that.
Yep. Yep.
I think Call of Cthulhu works very good in one-shots for the same reasons, for the same problems you have. I think that's why it's better as a one-shot in that... I have played Call of Cthulhu over like a campaign where there's a number of stories linked together, and the characters do quickly become very broken, in some cases almost unplayable, and which can be fun, don't get me wrong. Yeah, and I think Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics have some really great mechanics. They're funnel type adventure where everybody plays 4 0-level characters, is very fun. And anybody that wants to, like, any friends that come to me and go, hey, we should do a funnel again. I'm always up for running a funnel. I think that's a really fun way to play. But this idea of just total randomness, the total randomness, I'm not a fan of. I love a random table, being an old school gamer as much as the next person, but I don't like random tables that then get so out of control that the game disintegrates.
Yeah. A difference between a quick idea with a random table or controlling the game is I think it has two. I don't mind a random table that goes, oh, guess what, like your hair is purple now or something, but like when you're like wiping out the party because of a random table. Again, there's some guys and girls out there that's the game they like. That's the game they love. They love that fact that you pulled the trigger and we're paying the consequences. Yeah. But I just don't. I didn't like that. One of those is my older brother, Rich. He loves random tables, and if the random table says this happened, he's like, that's great, that's hilarious, and to a certain point. But there's other times where like we got to keep the story like the story is to me more important than the table. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's venture in a little bit into the 5e debate, but we'll keep this somewhat. I'll go on record saying I know everyone thinks Mike's gonna just love 5e. They have a lot of things about them that I liked in the 2014 version that I liked, that I thought were improvements on. They were improvements on the things that I felt 3.5 was getting away from. 3.5 was starting to become how can I maximize build this character, cross class this, prestige class this, cross class. I'll do two. Like I would sit down and like write out 20 levels of what my character was going to do and when I was going to feat, and like you know what you're building for, and then something in the story happens, you go, okay, so now I'm going to start doing this, but it became to me just a maximized build. And 5e, I felt when I first read it was like, this is like the whole idea of having your bonds, your flaws, your traits, I liked that, which now I'll say in what I call 5e woke edition, they got rid of all the stuff that was, and I call it that not in a derogatory term, but in a reference to, they got rid of all the stuff that was like, this race is a strong race. Sorry, I can't call it a race now. This species is a strong species. No, orcs aren't stronger than humans. Orcs aren't stronger than halflings. It depends what their background was. And then they got rid of the traits, the bonds, the flaws, and they more of just they streamlined it more than 5e had already streamlined from 3.5. Now I still like it. I still play it. Going back to the 3.5 game, I think might be hard for me because I am now mentally on 5e. But there are a lot of flaws to it. I admit, a lot of flaws to it.
As a player, I prefer 3.5. I like 3.5. As a GM, I prefer running 5th edition just because it's easier. But I hate making characters in 5e compared to 3.5 because when I'm making a 5e character, I just feel like I've lost so much detail that I had in a 3.5. As a 5e GM, it's much easier because it's just a matter of like I'm not looking up as many things.
+4 for this, +2 for this, -2 for that, +6. Advantage, disadvantage.
Yeah, pretty much. And in terms of how the stat blocks are made, in terms of how the creatures are organized too, in 5th edition, it's very easy just to flip to the page and immediately, it's ethereal, so does he hit or not? and stuff like that. Whereas 3.5, we were actually sitting down for 10 minutes and flipping through the rules. They're like, well, this was going on, but, this was also a factor here, so where do I even find that? Because they mention it here, but they don't say where the rules are for this. And whereas 5th edition, it's all on the page. It's all on the page. If it's not on the page, then make it up.
No, I did get a chance to flip through. I didn't buy it, but I flipped through the new monster manual. Okay. And some of the stuff they did stat block wise, I was like, I don't think I would use this because it's now becoming more back to where I felt 3.5 was going, which is how to maximize. And I know how you feel. You don't love it. I know you don't love it.
Not for the reasons that you guys don't love it.
Okay.
I don't like 5th edition because I think advantage and disadvantage is a great mechanic in a way, but I think too many classes, too many combos now provide advantage.
Yep.
the example of the rogue needing, the rogue has so many ways to get advantage. Like, if you ever attack as a rogue and don't have your backstab, your sneak attack dice added in, you have done something wrong. Because the game basically gives you an opportunity to do that every time. And again, this is just because I'm an old guy. I'm coming from a time where, if your thief or rogue, whatever you want to call it, got an opportunity to get a backstab in, that was something to be celebrated. It wasn't necessarily something that was automatic every turn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So and then the fact that, like, once you have advantage, like, if you were to get advantage again, there's no additional bonus to that. It's just you have advantage.
Yeah.
I understand the need for simplicity and ease in that, but I too like I would prefer the idea of there being some other bonus to add in. And in the 2014 rules, it does talk about giving like a +2 bonus for this or a +2 bonus for that. And then on top of that, you could get advantage. And I very much like that mechanic, but I just feel like in 5th edition now, there's sort of this just wash of, that gives you advantage, to the point that I don't understand why it's even the rules. Just have players always roll with advantage.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a way to gain it in some way. And like some other things that bother me about the system is like, so if you're a, let's use the warlock for example. So a warlock that wants to be a hexblade, I think it is, where you're sort of like a melee warlock.
Yep.
It's like, well, we'll give the warlock a way to substitute their charisma for their physical stat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, again, I get it. You're just playing the numbers. So you only need one stat really maxed out.
You really do.
Because your class is going to give you a way to utilize that. I would rather see those combination classes have to have, decent stats to pull off that combination.
Have to work for it, right?
Yeah. And I think also with 5th edition, like, my experience has been like you sit down at a table and everybody's stats are always at a bonus. There's always pluses being rolled. There's never minuses being rolled. And some people, well, that's fun, and I get it, it's fun, but I think a lot of fun comes out of failed rolls as well, especially, like, to go back to what I said earlier, if your rolls are really meaning something, then a failed roll can be just as great for the story as a not failed roll.
They don't want anyone to fail.
Well, this is the thing, is that this is what I like about where there's games where you have at least one stat where it's not as good. I like playing the characters that are at a disadvantage with their particular, like I played a Minotaur Wizard, that where they're at a disadvantage for their chosen class. I prefer 3.5 that way then, because so you want to play a race that has a diminished intelligence, but you're still going to succeed anyway. You're going to work at it, and that's much more rewarding too. Well, I have my bonuses that I can just put anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I agree with what you're saying there, and I see it, because they don't want anyone to fail. So this class gets this ability, and we're going to find a way for that ability to be utilized all the time. I've seen people with Warlock. I've seen a player pretty much make a Paladin just by using the Warlock class. Right? Like, the Warlock can be very versatile to that. It has, as a thought came to me as you were talking about this, is it has a almost, I want to say, like, video game style feel. Right?
But and I agree with you. And Warlocks can do all sorts of things, like, depending on how you build them. And I think that comes out of modern game design, because the Warlock is a more modern class. Like Fighter, Cleric, Thief, and Rogue. No,
Ranger?
What am I missing? Fighter, Cleric, and Wizard. Sort of your four, if we can call them a base class. They're steeped in sort of tradition in that like, well, the fighter does fighting and the thief does sneaking, and so then you get a Warlock, which is designed much later, and, well, we're going to make a class that can do anything depending on how you build it, but it's coming to the table with classes that were not built that way, that were originally conceived as, like, specialists in this, specialists in sneaking, specialists in fighting, specialists in spellcasting. So I think there's some of that happening. So, yeah, But I can get over all of that. I just the idea that pretty much everything gives you advantage. I don't. There's also a lot of other nuances to the 5th edition rules that I don't think people necessarily play with, which is fine. Again, fine. But I don't think it's as simple a game. The 2014 game I came to because I was playing Pathfinder, and found Pathfinder had just become too crunchy for me.
Right.
Like 3rd edition. I'm happy to be playing a 3rd edition game, but it is far more crunchy system. And I think that was what attracted me back to D&D, to 5th edition from Pathfinder, is that it was not so crunchy. And I think in the 5.5 version of the game, it is starting to creep back that way. That there is a lot to think about. And my biggest pet peeve of 5th edition, and I should have maybe just led with this, if we were playing and we had a table of 4 or 5 people, I'm going to start the initiative, and it's going to take us a half an hour to get around the table once.
Yes. Yeah.
That,
so much that each person can do in a turn.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So much. I'll give 3.5 that. 3.5 was quicker in combat. I'll give that. And I think, though...
3.5? I don't think 3.5 is quicker.
You didn't think it was quicker in combat?
No.
But I think regardless of what system you're using, what game you're using, it really comes down to, as we were talking earlier with the DM,
it's more math.
is kind of knowing and learning when to ask for rolls, when to ask for action, and instead, as I've always said for all these episodes, let the players tell the story. Regardless of what setting you're using, what system you're using.
It's interesting though, because if you said if let's say someone's never played before and you pitch the game like this to them, come over to my house, we're going to play this game, and everybody gets to take a turn, but just so you're aware, you're going to be waiting 20 minutes between each of your turns. If you were just pitching it like a board game, we're going to play a board game, but after you go, you then have 20 minutes before we get around the table for you to take a turn again. That would not be... no one would want to play that game.
Yeah. This is why people take their turn and then they go on their phone. My wife does this all the time, and I'm like, get off your phone.
Yeah, that time to get around the table. So systems now that I'm playing that let me get around the table quicker. I like.
Yeah, I like that too. Well, we ran into a bit of that not in combat in the old World of Darkness when I used to run, but I sadly had 8 people playing at one point. Well, if the group wasn't collaborative in any way, and they weren't in that game, of course, you'd be like, I had to put a timer on my phone and give each person 15 minutes, because otherwise, it's even it's still 45 minutes.
It would be a 3-hour game, 3 or 4 hour game, and you might have a turn.
Right, so we had to start putting. I don't even think I think I did 10 minutes or 5 minutes.
I think World of Darkness you have to shrink the group.
Yeah, because it didn't work. But I thought, I can do it that big, because in my mind, while saying I can do 8 people, was they're all going to work together. And then we sit down. It's like, well, I'm a recluse who never leaves his house. I'm like, okay. I'm from this group. I'm from that group who hates that group. And I'm like, maybe I should run it as 2 different groups on 2 different nights.
So Horror on the Hill in front of us here.
Okay.
B5.
Yeah.
I ran this campaign with 12 people. This module, it turned into a campaign because it's such a long module. We ran this with 12 people around my mother's dining room table, and the rounds were like lightning fast. I feel like we got lots of
I have
different.
to be very gentle with this book.
Yeah, it's going to fall apart.
Lots of different battles and
just
fights in one night. And you can't do that now.
No, you can't. No. You can't do that. I don't know any system where you can do that. I almost try to limit combat in my games to 1 or 2, unless they're super. I know they're going to be super quick, and I just put them there really so the group can beat these things and feel good. I don't know of a system where you can run fights that quickly.
I would tell you I could do it in Castles and Crusades.
Yeah. I need to play. I need to play Castle next year. Ragnarok. I'm gonna make sure I'm not running a game when you're running a game, and I'm signing up for Castles and Crusades because I need to play this game.
But in basic, it's basic. You have an action. That, and you don't have bonus actions. You don't have.
No. And if I do this, I can get that action back, and if I do this, I can get that action back.
Exactly. And in older versions of D&D, when it came to your turn, if you attacked, you literally just swung your sword, or whatever weapon you had. And I know some people may find that boring, but it wasn't. We still found it exciting because the game moves at a faster pace. So you get more turns in, and for those reasons, the fact that you're not getting tons to do on your turn is sort of not as big a bother.
I've always been if you want to just swing your sword, you swing your sword. But if you go, I want to swing my sword, but I grab it and I give a description to it, you're going to have all the fun, and then you roll. It doesn't, swinging the sword can be boring if you're just rolling the dice. But if you put some flair into how you do it, and I love that. Oh, he just attacked at me? Okay, so I block it, and I swipe up with an uppercut of the sword, and that's just fun on its own, right? And I love when the players start doing that.
It's not just the dice; it's the storytelling of the players and the DM there. Because if it is just a dice, you might as well be playing a video game because it's just like I hit. Are the numbers good? Numbers are good. So many numbers taken off on that side. Then they hit. Are the numbers good?
Let's just play Risk.
Yeah.
Although I do love Risk. I can't play it anymore. I made my kids cry.
But turn it into a story, though.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference. The dice rolls support it, the numbers support it, the math is still there, but it's the story over top that's layering it. So you can say, well, I swing my sword and I do this, and then you as a DM react as the villain as to what happens, and there's trash talking going on.
And there's no need for, because you swung that way, you get this and that. It's just flair. It's just color.
Yeah.
It's just storytelling. Yeah. This has been a lot of fun. We are coming to the end here.
Are we really?
Yeah, we are. We're having too much fun, guys. And I appreciate you coming out, Jeremy, to talk a little trash and a little shop with us.
We complain about everything.
Don't get us wrong. We absolutely love games. We wouldn't give it up. You and I talked about this on text the other day. It was like, between work and family and everything else, it's hard to find a place to run a game. It's like, but I still would not give it up. Well, except for the work part. Right?
Yeah.
But it is something we love. We don't do this because we hate it. The negative things we say are just us kind of letting off steam there, said with love.
Well, but you know what? It's okay to criticize and talk about games that you like versus that you don't like, because for those reasons, you maybe only have a limited amount of time you can game because of work, family, and other commitments. So when you get together, you don't want to spend that time, like let's say you have a 3 to 4 hour block of gaming. Why am I wanting to spend a third of that time watching other people take their turns when I just want to be taking my turn, or bumbling through pages and pages of rules because we can't find how, we can't find how you grapple or how you trip an opponent. Those sorts of things are what make the game unenjoyable. As opposed to just, we got through so many encounters tonight and we got to talk to these NPCs, and that I think is when the game's fun. And if you only have a limited amount of time, you have to maximize it.
And enjoy and get every bit of enjoyment out of it for sure. All right.
I've made no notes. I've got an empty book here.
That's a first, and I have a book for the first time.
You have a book with notes. What has happened?
We flipped not only any book, but it is an Emerald notebook. Product placement. All right. So once again, thank you for coming out, joining with us, and talking about games. Really enjoyed it. I enjoy all the games that we get to play together. We're getting a few here and there more games in, which is a lot of fun. It's always fun to have, to meet up with new people and play games and see how they play and see how they run games.
You guys are like my gateway drug back to the table as opposed to playing online.
Is that a bad thing?
No, not at all. Not at all. But over COVID, everything went to online, and then I'd been in it so long, and now I'm just starting to get back to tables.
Hilariously, you're my gateway to getting more out of my home game, because I think you ended up taking the job in the radio station, which took you out of Devil's Bench. And I jumped in onto that one, never having done that before, quite like that, and the public gaming. And now I'm trying to find a way where I can set up cameras in here in some way to clip them off the light to stream my own game. And
and then I wound up taking over afterwards as a placeholder.
When the Devil's Bench closed, yeah.
Well, when the summer session was over, and then the Devil's Bench
at
closed
the bench.
right after.
On a side note, how sad is it that the Devil's Bench isn't there
It was
anymore?
so sad. So sad. It was such a great treasure for Brantford.
It was.
Yeah. My kid goes to piano just around the corner from there, and every time I'm driving by, I look at it and I'm like, oh, I just feel that.
There needs to be gaming, like more game shops, like board game cafes, RPG clubs, like just
In Brantford.
yeah. Well, in general, in every town, if you have a public place where people can just come and play games and maybe buy some snacks.
So there is a gaming cafe opening up in Kitchener.
Okay.
Which was Andrew beside us had been talking about it, and he is going ahead with doing that.
Okay.
But I'm not driving out to Kitchener to go play games. That's my thing, right? Like,
well, this is why I'm saying, like, if every community has that, you have a place for kids to go. Like when we were young, there really wasn't that.
We talked about this last episode. We need to win the lottery so we can open up a game cafe / office and just do that.
Yeah.
There usually there was when I was young, there was a group that ran D&D out of the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got in on that game a few times. We eventually got I was there for the closing down of that game because it got so loud and rowdy that the librarians kicked it out and shut it down. Because I think at one point, well, when I joined, there was 15 to 20 players sitting around the table with one DM.
That's
Holy
fantastic,
cow.
though. I love that. I absolutely love that. I do hear that people do that at the library still in Brantford. The downtown one.
Yeah,
You can't.
Not with 15 to 20
No,
players.
no, there's probably 3 or 4 of them, really.
I think there's a group in Paris as well at the Paris Library. So, but I mean, as a public place, if you're like being that 12-year-old kid that says, I want to learn how to play D&D. I want to find other players. I want to. Just have a public place where you can go and have it. There's a table there, and everybody
I have
can
had
gather.
2 or 3 people that I know come up to me and say, like, "Oh, a friend of mine or someone I know, or their kid or my kid wants to get into D&D, and do you know where they can go to learn?" And I'm like, "Oh, I need to set up a public game so they can come and learn. Like, I want to be involved with it, and I can't. But if I hear of anything, I'll let you know." And need to get back to a public game somewhere. Okay.
All right.
So once again, that'll bring us to the end of this episode. This has been so much fun. And again, thank you for coming out. Jennifer, thanks for coming over. And everyone, thanks for watching. Big shout out to our backers from Kickstarter. Shout out to our top tier Patreons. And don't forget to follow us on Patreon, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube with World of Emleral. And don't forget to follow Jeremy at Old Man Rolling Dice or on Twitch at DM Jeremy. DM_Jeremy. A lot of good content there to watch. Go back a few episodes in the Vampire one and get some really cool vampire in there. He's kind of neat.
I think we're kicking off some new plot lines in what month are we in right now? It's June.
Yeah.
So in July, June, we're putting a button on a whole bunch of stories this coming week, and then we're kicking off new ones. So it was a good time to get in at the ground floor.
And then you have Thursday nights. You have on Twitch. You have Castles and Crusades, and then you play in a game as well.
Yes, on Wednesday. Every other Wednesday. Yeah. Every other Wednesday, I'm at Stronghold D&D, which is a really great community if you want to. If you're interested in D&D and stuff. Yeah.
So there you go. Lots of opportunities for all the games out there, guys. All right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.